Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Welcome, everyone, to the webinar today on engaging, training, and implementing dementia programs that utilize volunteers. In this webinar series, the Administration for Community Living's National Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center has partnered with the American Society on Aging. We're pleased to have all of you in attendance today. Before we start, Erin Long of the Administration for Community Living will provide a brief welcome. Erin?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy days to join us for this important webinar on volunteers and utilizing them for our dementia programs. We are very pleased to have Kay Wallach and Daphne Johnson here to tell us about their experiences. And with that, I will turn it back to Sarah so we can get underway. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, Erin. So as you heard, Kay Wallach and Daphne Johnson have joined us today. Kay Wallach is the Program Director for Dementia Friendly Wyoming in Sheridan, Wyoming. She is a founder of Greenhouse Living for Sheridan, an alternative skilled nursing facility, and was National Director of Shepherd Centers of America. Daphne Johnson is founder and director of the Respite Ministry in Montgomery, Alabama. Her faith-based volunteer model of care has spread to 12 new programs in the Southeast United States. I'll turn it over to Kay Wallach right now, and we'll get started.
Thank you very much. Our story today is really about an emerging volunteer program. It's changing day to day based upon our learnings and our experiences, and we're continuing to grow, but we're still fairly small. Just a little bit of history about Sheridan, Wyoming. We are a rural community. Actually, the whole state is rural, but our community is about 21,000 with a Western kind of can-do attitude. So creating a friendly visitor program is sort of a natural extension of this kind of spirit. We are in the third year of our grant through Administration for Community Living and are making plans to share our successes of our project with communities throughout Wyoming. There's a lot of interest in our Friendly Visitor Program at this point, and we're really happy to share it soon. This volunteer Friendly Visitor Program is not just a supplement to support persons living with dementia. We feel that it's a real partnership with our care coordinators in providing the support that's needed. They are really a part of the team and part of the care circle that provides that ongoing care. So a little bit about our journey. We began this program, well, before the program began, we developed as a part of our grant the Friendly Connector Program, what many probably know as a gatekeeper program. This was created to train various organizations in the community to identify those that may be at risk of dementia, and especially those that live alone, and then to refer them to our support center for additional support. The biggest challenge for our care coordinator in the beginning is building that trust so that she can really begin to assess what their needs are. Through the development of her relationship, she found that most of the persons she was working with seemed to need more than just supportive services. They were really hungry for someone to talk to spend time with. Social isolation, we felt, is really one of their greatest risks. So providing much-needed assistance, connecting to services, and providing socialization from her perspective was a bit overwhelming. So we quickly jumped on to develop the Friendly Visitor Program last year, and then we now have about 15 volunteers and are continuing to sort of change the way we're doing it. But the overall purpose of the coordination of care is to support people living with dementia stay in their homes as long as possible by trying to fill in with the community services and filling in the gaps. There are a lot of services that don't exist. A visit from a volunteer can provide some of the support that is needed for friendship, engagement, and socialization for individuals with dementia. Even though the minimum is to spend 1 hour per week, many of our people are connecting 3 to 5 times per week. The goal is that these visits will reduce isolation and loneliness, and their friend will begin to feel more positive about their lives. Our friendly visitors are helping their friends stay connected to the outside world through shopping trips, appointments, and activities. We are also creating engagement activities for the friendly visitor and their friends, such as hands-on art engagement at our museum and at other places. We love the look of their faces and their smiles and their pride for the great accomplishment. So we began this program by providing friendly visitors for persons living alone, as this seemed to be the greatest need. These weekly visitors helped to decrease the sense of isolation, as I said. We expanded these visits for persons with dementia who have a care partner at home as well. And this not only offers additional friendship, but also provides much-needed respite for the care partner. So where did this all begin? Before we decided we needed to do some research, we actually started developing the program. We researched programs nationally and internationally to identify best practices and the components that would best fit our rural community. We discovered that many friendly visitor programs do not specifically work with persons living with dementia, so that was another challenge. We also realized that preparing volunteers for this experience would require much more training and ongoing support for the volunteer. After gathering the information, we began to develop the procedures, the job description, and the training programs. After all of this was in place, we started the recruitment process. So that's just a quick overview. So what are we looking for in a volunteer? Well, all the things you can possibly imagine: good communication skills, the ability to listen empathetically, someone who is comfortable spending time alone with someone with dementia. We often find that volunteers have some discomfort in dealing with the unknown. We believe with our training that they feel more and more comfortable with this aspect of the program as we go. We hope that a volunteer will have the ability to tolerate differing opinions and lifestyles. We try to do a good job of matching, but we stress in the training the importance of their focus on their friend, not on their own opinions. Someone who understands the need to respect the confidentiality, which is really important, being calm, and can exercise sound judgment with dealing with stressful situations. They also always know that a staff is there to support them whenever they are in those situations. And someone who is capable of not judging unusual language or behaviors. Behaviors are often their form of communication. And again, we stress that their focus is always on their friend, and they should not take anything personally. So what are their responsibilities? They attend an initial training session, become familiar with working with persons living with dementia, as well as attending bi-monthly meetings with other visitors where they share their successes and receive in-service coaching. They are required, of course, to maintain volunteer hours and report to our facilitator, and again, maintaining their friends' confidentiality, communicating with individuals in a respectful, friendly manner, and reporting any concerns about safety, abuse, or neglect to the facilitator immediately. However, we also tell them that if it's something that is very serious or an emergency, of course they call 911, or they may want to report to Adult Protective Services and then connect with the facilitator. So they also will inform the friendly visitor facilitator when unable to make their appointment, because we don't want their friend to be disappointed. So we basically have three options. We're mainly doing the first one right now, but we're working on really developing the other two. Most of our visitors visit their friend at least once per week for a minimum of 1 hour, but almost everybody does much more than that. They're engaging with their friend in conversation or activities. They may even help with light chores in the home. They may take a walk outside or engage in other outdoor activities if appropriate. And some may accompany their friend to medical appointments, shopping, errands, and community events. Another option, because we realize there's some people who would love to volunteer but maybe can't get out. So we're creating a telephone visitor program where they can stay at home, call the person. We're creating regularly scheduled phone calls as decided with the facilitator, maintaining documentation regarding each call, and then reporting back, ensuring that the facilitator is notified of any issues or concerns. And if the friend is experiencing unusual problems, the volunteer is trained to try to help out as much as possible and connect with us. So the third part we're really excited about. Some of our visitors are already providing transportation, but we realized that we needed to probably shore that up a bit. So basically what we're calling, the one term that I've discovered that I love is hand-in-hand transportation. Our transportation program here in Sheridan takes people to their appointments or to wherever they're going, drops them off, comes to pick them up. As you can well imagine, with persons living with dementia, they need much more than that. Most of our friends that are being visited need somebody to go into the store with them, to basically be with them as they're doing the shopping, maybe going into the medical appointment with them, wherever they may go. They need just a little bit more help. So we're asking our transportation volunteers, if some of them may just be just transportation, that they call the day before, because people living with dementia will also need to be reminded. They may need a call before, the day before. They may need a call right before the ride. They need to be punctual and dependable, report any health, safety, or well-being concerns again to our facilitator, and call immediately to let us know if they cannot make the ride, because we'll need to find another way to do it. So we're also working on the training piece for the transportation program. We almost have that in place. So with volunteer recruitment, this has been a big challenge. And we kind of knew the answer to this about how we were really going to find the people. But we have some great stories in the press about our visitors and their friends. We did even some paid media advertising that were just beautiful pieces. We had 3 public service announcements on the radio that were wonderful. But what we found is that word of mouth is what works best, that personal relationship. In our public speaking, we have received some with every presentation that we make. We really talk about the Friendly Visitor Program, and we've had a few volunteers from that. But word of mouth, it's all about telling the stories to our supporters, family, and friends, those that already have ownership in our program. For example, I have to brag a little bit. My husband is one of the most active volunteers, so he has to report to me every night what he's done with his visitor or his friend. We've also found that persons who have cared for someone with dementia in the past are often ready to volunteer to help. So now we're ready for the pre-training. Before they even get involved in the real training, they have to go into the Senior Center, and that's really part of our infrastructure. We're a part of the Senior Center, so they already have a lot of policies and procedures. They fill out an application, and they're interviewed by the volunteer director, who gives them a brief overview of the program, what the job entails, time commitment, emergency guidelines, and keeping track of hours. And this will usually be the time when a decision is made by the potential volunteer about their interests, whether they feel this is a good match. The volunteer director may also either encourage them to jump on board, or she may suggest that this may not be quite the right match for them. If they decide to go forward, the volunteer director has them sign a release for a criminal background check. If this check comes back negative, the director will give them an orientation of the Senior Center and review the volunteer handbook. And this all takes about 1.5 hours. Basically, the volunteer handbook or the volunteer policies already include the code of ethics, confidentiality, conflict of interest, setting boundaries, and report of abuse, neglect, and exploitation, injury reporting, and incident reporting. So once all of this is completed, now we go into the real training. We are blessed because we have a dementia care educator who is providing a lot of skill building training for both professional and family caregivers, but also for the volunteers for this program as well. We realized early on that preparing volunteers to spend meaningful time with someone living with dementia is an ongoing process. We can't just do one training and then that's it. Our dementia care educator begins by facilitating a 2-hour training session that gives the volunteer a deeper understanding of dementia and what their friend may be experiencing during their times together. After the volunteer begins visiting their friend, they also come back to spend time one-on-one with our educator for additional coaching, especially when they have questions and challenges. So what the training covers, this is a brief overview, but an overview of the causes of dementia, the challenges that may occur, looking at Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia with Lewy bodies, and frontotemporal dementia, creating a better understanding about how the senses might be affected with the disease as they spend time with their person, helping to build their skills in how to approach, how to connect, and to begin conversations utilizing the TIPA SNOW positive approach to care, which Dementia Care Educator is fully certified in. Also, it's so important for the volunteer to have a better understanding about where their friend may be regarding their disease. We like to use some may be totally aware that they have cognitive issues. Others may be totally unaware. They also may be somewhat aware, or they might be aware but cover it as they do not want anyone to know. This is really important for the person to understand as they approach and spend time. And it's good to remember that this will be fluctuating. There may be times when they are aware, other times when they are not. So helping them understand what it's like to live with brain change, how does it affect their daily living, why might a person behave in a certain way, what might they be feeling, what might they need in this moment. And then understanding their challenges with time is extremely important. Where is their friend in their life cycle at that point? And that may also be fluctuating. They may feel much younger or older. What time of day is it for them? What time of day is better for them to engage? Knowing how to deal with the time challenges from the volunteer perspective is really important. We also give them a primer on the progression of the disease, depending on the cause and the difference between normal aging and those with cognitive issues. Confabulation, instead of a new word for me, but this is actually a memory disturbance in which a person confuses imagined scenarios with actual memories with no intent to deceive. So it's about, it's their actuality. They're living in their actuality with their memories the way they believe that they are. So it's important for the volunteer to understand this and to basically be with that person where they are. 4 F's and the 4 S's are all about the environment, all about supporting someone in the environment, the physical, psychological, and emotional, not just the physical. The 4 F's are about friendly. Are you with people that she knows? Familiar? Does she know the area where she is? Is she comfortable? Functional? Is she able to do what is needed? And forgiving. Is she allowed to make mistakes? The 4 S's are about how they will interpret space, intimate, personal, and public spaces, sensations, surfaces. Should they need to sit, stand, social? Are they comfortable with the people, the activities, and the roles? The most important part, of course, is supportive communication and validation. Empathetic, really giving them the skills for empathetic listening, allowing them to their friend to express their emotions, restoring their self-worth, asking open questions, etc., all the things we know about communication. So that's the overview of the first 2 hours of training, but it's ongoing with the bi-monthlies and ongoing with ongoing coaching as well. So matching, how do we match? Basically, with our friendly visitor in the training, they fill out a questionnaire that covers their history, their interests, and their personalities. We also do this with their friend. We do this with maybe the help of a care partner, but through interviews. Staff also knows the recipients well, and they know the visitor. So that matching works fairly well in that way. Oops. Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't. I didn't go to that slide. Sorry about that. So evaluation. This has been a challenge for us, but we utilize the Dementia Quality of Life and the proxy for evaluating with the help of caregivers. We believe this is a pretty good tool, but we need some practice with it. We've really only been able to show 6 months differences with a couple of clients, and it's been positive. The questions in that cover things about feelings in the last week. Have you felt cheerful, worried or anxious, memory, difficulty making decisions, everyday life, a number of different things. It's a good tool. We're now training our friendly visitors to actually utilize that tool. We believe our success is in our stories. We also do a qualitative assessment with our friendly visitors, like what is the best part of being a visitor, what are their greatest challenges, what they believe their friend appreciates about the visits, We have great stories, which I may not have time to go into much today. There's one I'll use. Knowing that my dementia friend has a better chance at staying in his home is what's important to me. Many professionals believe it is unsafe for him to stay in his home. Together, we've been able to create a safer place for him to live. I've repaired some of the appliances, taken him to get groceries, helped with laundry, taken him to the doctor, and helped organize and clean out his home. Many more beautiful stories, and that's what we love the most. Our challenges, very briefly, developing a training that does not overwhelm people. We feel like we've finally come up with a good balance of about 4 hours of training and then ongoing coaching. Nobody's really complained about that at this point. Bringing volunteers together for regular support and additional trainings, we feel like we are now doing that bi-monthly at a regularly scheduled time, and they really appreciate that time together. Educating the community about appropriate referrals, and often we get inappropriate referrals from some professionals who think somebody needs a friendly visitor, but they haven't, the person has not really wanted one. And establishing training for transportation volunteers, we're working on that, finding the evaluation tool that you can use with persons living with dementia that is effective, and we think we can do that with the volunteers actually helping it with us. And then the recruitment of volunteers, that's always a challenge. So I think I did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kay. Daphne, feel free to go ahead.
Okay, Kay, that was great. I'm in a little bit different situation. I'm in Montgomery, Alabama, and we are housed in a church. Ours is a respite ministry with several churches and a synagogue involved. And first, let me just say as we go forward, when I say the respite ministry, I'm going to refer to our program as a respite. It's not the action verb to give respite, but respite just stuck to us, and I kept looking for a better name, but it stuck, and here we are. But respite is not a babysitting service. We are a large group of people that have formed a community to support families living with Alzheimer's and dementia to experience love, acceptance, healing, education, a sense of belonging. You know, we figured out you go to a neurology office, you get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and they tell you that, and then these families don't know where to turn afterwards. And we want to be the community where people go for answers and people go for belonging. Moving on, this slide really represents to respite and to myself the sea of people that we're going to be helping over the next 20, 30 years. The future has got to be different than the past. We just can't, you know, decide to put people in facilities locked up forever and ever. We've got to find new systems. So right now, currently, someone's diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, then they typically quit their job, they return home, they're living with a stressed-out care partner. They become increasingly isolated, as Kay was saying, and depression sets in. Sitters arrive, facilities are researched and engaged, and that's just one scenario, and that's why we think there's such a need for respite. There's going to be close to 15 million people by 2050 that are living with this disease, and we've got to put new systems in place. There's got to be new ways to engage these families, to educate these families, and to help them at the beginning of the disease so they can have quality life. So I'm about to share with you our successful, low-cost community program that focuses on providing purpose, meaning, and hope. And like I said, we're not a sitter service. We're not a daycare. We are here to better these people's lives, and it's through the relationship with volunteers. I've got several pictures, so just bear with me. I tried to lighten it up just a little bit. You know, so many of the things that we do, our activities are the typical things you would do during the day, art, music, in any program, art, music, hand-eye coordination. But we've really worked hard to add components of having events where we're helping the community, where we've got service projects. Here we packed 200 flood kits for Hurricane Michael when it came through. You're going to see several other service project things. Here, I want you to just take note. There's no difference in the volunteers and the participants. We packed 1,000 eggs for low-income family housing, and that took us about 2 hours. And we sang, and we packed these eggs, and we had purpose. And those are just one of the many service projects we do. What programs and what communities are we offering our people that are living with this disease where they can still matter, where they still have purpose? Just a quick overview of how we started. We began 7 years ago with 2 participants and 14 volunteers. And now, fast forward 7 years later, we have 60 participants coming a week and a pool of about 80 active volunteers with many more on the side. Respite operates daily. We have 1 leader for the day. That would be the trained professional leader that's had all the Alzheimer's backgrounds. But then we've got 10 to 15 trained volunteers who provide supervision, lead activities, and they help serve lunch to over 20 to 25 participants a day. Y'all are not going to believe it, but 40 to 50 4-hour shifts fill with 1 email. We don't have any fancy software. We don't have any, I don't know, we don't have a team of people working on volunteers. It's contagious. They want to be here, and therefore 40 to 50 slots fill within a day of when we send the email. So we have a flexible schedule, and I'll talk more about that later. But just for instance, last year alone in 2018, we logged 13,000 hours of volunteer time with 2 employees. I'm talking really fast. I'm so sorry. The key component of this program is there's no difference in the volunteer and the participant. So many times we can go to programs. I researched several before we started, and they've got green smocks on. The volunteer might have a purple tag, and the participant might have a green. And, you might, I don't know, you just got a different kind of label that says who you are. But through all these pictures, I hope you catch the spirit of community, but I hope you also notice you'll never be able to tell who's a volunteer and who's a participant, because we have all got purpose, and that's what we're trying to put into our people. Respite is open to everyone. Even though we're in a church, we are open to every affiliation. We're open to every memory disorder, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. We've got 2 Downs participants right now. We've got 48-year-olds to 102-year-olds. We want everyone. We include everyone. The only stipulations that we have are that our participants are mobile. They can be in a wheelchair, or they can be with their walker, but they've got to be able to get around themselves, attend to their own bathroom needs, and participate in the activities and eat on their own. We've got some that can't communicate at all, but they're fine. They're happy in a group setting. We've only had to ask maybe 4 or 5 to leave over the past 7 years because they couldn't handle such a loud, big group dynamic. There's anywhere from 30 to 50 people in the room every day, so they've got to be able to handle the crowd. Respite is offered Monday through Thursday, and I put that, it's 4 days a week right now for us, but we began 2 days a week, and we grew to 3 days a week at the end of the first year. And we started at $30 a day. Now we are at $40 a day, and I like to tell our families that's a little, $10 an hour plus a hot lunch. The thing that I'm most proud of when I show this slide is 1/3 of our participants are on scholarship. Nobody is turned away from this ministry. And every time I work with government conferences or, I don't know, private pay, different avenues, people say, what, you don't have a sliding scale? You don't have some means of how you know? And I just tell them we just do the right thing. When somebody calls and they're on Social Security, or somebody calls and they've got a problem, we can either give them 1 day for free. If we've got room, we can do 2. But we just never turn anybody away, and it's always worked out. So we wrote off $50,000 in scholarships last year alone, and we still made our budget. Several of the aspects of respite, the main thing is our team approach. I was listening to Kay, and she's talking about individually going out and what a mission that is, because it is tough to do these things on our own. And when I look at our respite model, We've got sub-teams of volunteers just simultaneously preparing the next activity. I mean, when you're preparing an art activity, 25 people, the paints, the waters, the tablecloths, all that kind of stuff, we can do that all in 5 minutes because we've got 15 volunteers in there. The volunteers are constantly performing, engaging in every activity. They're cleaning up after every activity. They're serving the meals, and it's all seamless. And they're including our friends to be part of the chores, of the jobs throughout the day. Everybody has got purpose. You know, I look at these care partners when they arrive, and they can't believe what all we do, and they can't do anything like this at home because they're just by themselves, and they've got all the worries of the world with them, and so this is the benefit of the team approach. Challenges, implementing respite. The startup fund is probably the toughest, but once we've found, I'll say at the end, we've helped start 12 programs, and we've got 4 coming up in the fall to open. Once you begin talking to families that have lived through the Alzheimer's experience, private money just seems to come for that first-year startup. It's typically the director's salary, typically anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a year for that first salary, and then he or she does it based on the work of the volunteers. Space in a host church. This is so sustainable because you've got very, very low overhead. You've got free space to operate in these faith-based churches and synagogues. So you're not paying for space. You're just paying for the director, hopefully. Food sources tend to be something places have to work through, whether it be a caterer or a restaurant from the outside. People just have to get creative with that. So the next slide I love to show because this is where we get our revenue. 10 people a day, 10 people, a day, 2 days a week. You're looking at $40,000. And what I like to tell startup churches and startup organizations is you've got tons of people out there paying anywhere from $12 to say $25 an hour or more in different parts of the country for private sitters to come to their house to sit. So you've got a market out there of people that can afford to pay anywhere from $30 to $50 a day, and that kind of helps offset the ones that need help. So this slide's important to me because it does show you've got a sustainable avenue of revenue. Initial volunteer recruitment. People always wonder how we have such armies of volunteers, and it's in every site. I had one small place in a rural town in South Alabama, and they had 25 volunteers coming a day with 12 participants. And I asked the director, I said, what is happening? And she said, I can't get anybody to go home. Everybody wants to be part of it. It's a life-changing thing. But really, to begin the ministry, to begin the program, you've got to engage the community groups. We look to Sunday school classes because it's face-to-face. We look to book clubs and literary clubs. The best is Kiwanis and Rotary, your civic organizations. Men are extremely important to the volunteer recruitment process. They offer so much, and I try to recruit them and say, look, I need you to talk about football and World War II and all the things that we can't handle. And they, in turn, typically end up recruiting their own friends. So we've doubled our men. I love to share how we talk about meaningful service. You know, when you get volunteer programs, and I look at other respites around the country, they're begging people to come and to work. They're coming to work from 10 to 2, or they're coming to work here or work there. But I'm telling you, when you get in front of groups of people and you share that you're going to change somebody's life, you're going to pour value and worth and meaning into a person that's isolated, it makes a difference, and you can get them there. And then you sucker punch them, and you tell them, hey, I'm going to give you a flexible work schedule on top of it. We love to share that you have meaningful service, but you get to do it on your own time. Our volunteers are not responsible for finding their replacements. They're not responsible to commit to every week. They're not responsible to commit to every month. We grow at the rate of our volunteers, but we put them in a large pool. And like I said at the beginning, we have about 80 active volunteers right now. So they only respond to our email, our work schedule email, if they can work. And all they have to do is write back and say, yes, I can work Tuesday, May the 2nd, and it all falls into place. Once we get them recruited, we host a 3-hour volunteer training, and it sounded a lot like Kay's. It's just full of the chemistry of the brain and dementia, but not so much the whole training. This is probably about 30 minutes related to dementia needs and dementia, I don't know, the chemistry of dementia. Our training is common sense. It is how to build people up. It's how to include everyone. It's what to do when someone's a little out of sorts. How can we include them? How can we calm them down? It's common sense training. This is a social model. There's no medical, we don't give meds, we don't do med services, we don't have aides. This is just a friend helping friends. And so our training is really common sense. This is just a picture like we arrange flowers every morning for our homebound people or people that need things, but here again, you just can't tell who's who. We're always sharing that we have a mission, not just coming to work. So our volunteer training includes the expectations, our scheduling, how we do it, confidentiality, the intangibles of the volunteers. When you only have one director for anywhere from 30 to 50 people for the day, you really have to learn to lean on those volunteers. So we count on them to share their talents and their passion, and they have to do every activity the participants do. So there's no difference. Everybody is doing the same thing, so there's never a sense of other. We want everyone to feel the same way. No difference in the participants, volunteers, role play. We go through several situations in the training that could arise, and of course the flexible scheduling. Here's just another example of doing our community work. We packed about 500 bags of dog food for Meals on Wheels, our low-income meals. It's almost monthly, if not weekly, that we're trying to find service projects for our people to stay connected to the community. The volunteer difference, I'll speak a little bit more about it. We're just coaching them to fill participants with purpose through the day, shared responsibility of planning. We might assign them a 30-minute slot. You're in charge of this 30-minute slot. Come up with a game, come up with a speaker. It's taking the responsibility and it's giving ownership to the volunteers. And I really think that's why they come back over and over and over again, because they're part of it. They're not being told what to do. They're part of the process. They're part of the relationships. They don't provide labor. They're really in there for the relationships. This was just a kite making day for 25 kids. Everybody painted and made the kites. We have tons of intergenerational activities. Daycares come all the time. Here's a guy playing hockey. He's 48, and he can't say a word, but he will play hockey all day long. And it's really hard for a care partner at home to set up hockey. You know, we've got 20 people in there trying to help him play hockey. So I'm nearing the end. I know I'm talking really fast, but here is the roadmap of how to start a respite ministry, a respite program. I'm going to show it to you in just a minute, but this is the overview. It includes the first steps to organize, the marketing plan, the volunteer recruitment, the financial piece, the leadership structure, and community engagement. We had this made. This is a picture of the professional roadmap, and these are free, and we love to hand them out. People can check off the different steps, where they are in the process, and they can call us anytime for coaching or consultation. This is my pride and joy. This is Dr. Gail Mocker at UAB Neurology. UAB and Emory are probably the largest neurology departments in the Southeast. And Dr. Gail Mocker began seeing that his patients that were coming to respite were getting better. Their memory scores were going up. They were coming 2 and 3 days a week. And they've probably sent 30 to 50 participants to us over the past couple of years. So I had him write the summary of what he thinks makes it so special, what our program does. And he says, in sum, respite programming can accomplish what medical therapy in 2018 cannot. It provides an environment in which persons with dementia can thrive. They all have purpose. The whole magic of the whole thing is they're coming to work. You know, they send them out of the doctor's office saying, look, you need to get to this respite program. You still need to volunteer. You need to get out there and push yourself to help someone else. So when they enter in our program, it's not for them to be served. It's for them to do something new and to push themselves. Even though they're living with memory loss, they need to find new purpose, and they need to help their neighbors. So that's what makes it so attractive, I think, to care partners as well, that everybody's got purpose. So just a couple of quick highlights we had last year. In 7 years, we've logged 70,000 hours of volunteer time, and that's with 2 paid employees. We were highlighted in Kiplinger's magazine in 2018 for a new option of quality care for those living with dementia. The Maria Shriver Foundation flew a big production crew down from New York and put us on a public service announcement in 2019. And we've helped to start now 14. It was 12 when I had started the PowerPoint 2 months ago. We've launched 2 new ones, and like I said, we've got 2 to 4 coming in the fall. We love to share this information. It's for free. We just want to help these communities start because it's a no-brainer. It's low cost, it's successful, and it's a friendship revolution. That's our new tagline. It is all based on relationships. That's all I got.
Great. Thank you so much, Daphne and Kay. Great presentations. We have a lot of questions coming in, so we'll get started with those. If you do have questions, feel free to enter those into the question and answer pod on your webinar screen. The first question is, if you both could answer, that would be great. Someone was asking how you might handle uneven requests when you might have more volunteers than people with dementia or more people with dementia than volunteers. How do you handle those kinds of situations? Kay, do you want to start?
I'll jump in when she gets on. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Here I am. Oh, here I am. I'm on now.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Kay.
I forgot to unmute. Yes, that's probably a pretty big challenge for us because we're doing a one-on-one situation. So far, we really haven't had a problem. As we get a new volunteer, then we start doing sort of the search for somebody, a friend who might need the help. So yeah, it's worked out pretty well so far. I worry about that all the time because I don't want to train volunteers and have them have nothing to do. So the other thing we can do is just continue to do some coaching with them until we're ready, but we don't want to leave them without anything to do, for sure.
We typically, oftentimes, can have more volunteers than the participants, and we average 20 to 25 participants a day. But the director finds a way to put all the volunteers to work, whether it be you're on the lunch serve committee, you're on the cleanup crew, you're on the welcome committee at the door when they come and they go. It's really the chemistry of the director that can put everyone to work because everyone has got talent, and you've just got to find it.
Great, thank you so much. Kay, someone was asking what the size of your volunteer pool is right now, and if there's a typical volunteer type that has been most successful in working with people with dementia at this point in your project.
The pool right now, we have, she was asking for the numbers. We have 15 volunteers right now. And yeah, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question? I apologize.
Has there been a typical volunteer that's been most successful, or I know that you match based on interest and other things like that. Just wondering if there's some kind of magic, equation there of the typical volunteer that's most successful.
Yeah, and as I sort of look over our pool and I think about those that are just incredibly successful, I think it's people who don't, well, first of all, that have some creative abilities, that really know the community, that know how they might want to connect them to the community, somebody who understands the importance of finding out what those interests are of that particular volunteer and then trying to connect them. And one of the things that we're really starting after 2.5 years or a little bit over of doing this program is that we don't do anything without somebody living with dementia and helping us make the decisions about how we proceed. So we're into what we call co-production, and I love what you said, Daphne, that it's about doing with people, not for them or not to them. But anyway, I think our most successful ones are the ones, and then we connect people. I mean, we have one man who's a hoarder who really needs to do, he doesn't like to talk, so we want to match him with somebody that maybe doesn't like to talk a lot but likes to do with him.
Great.
It depends on
Thank you
the
so
situation,
much.
each person.
Daphne, there's a few questions that have come in asking about if you are responsible for getting any type of insurance for respite. And if
Yes,
so, what
I
kind
really
of
meant to put that
insurance?
I meant
Okay,
to put
go
that
ahead.
in our business plan. Our church, the host church, covers the insurance, and because we're a social program and different states have different congregational care regulations, they're very, very light. Like Georgia has got congregational care, but they're just basically food safety. The number of people, I think, can't go past 22. It's nothing like healthcare state regulations. Our insurance for the church went up $1,000. And several of the smaller programs don't even have an insurance change because it's like a social program with people coming with dementia. Like we've got other programs in the church that have people coming with dementia. So it's not a huge cost at all. And because we're doing the volunteer training, because we can document that we've done the background checks, we've done all the things Kay was talking about. I apologize for not having that in the slides. We're a social program, and we do the best we can, and it's covered all in our paperwork up front. But $1,000 is my canned answer, and I think it's below that for many programs.
Okay, great. Thank you. Kay, we have one question about a little bit about the timeline of when your program started and, how things have progressed so far. Can you give a little bit of a flavor for that?
Sure. We really just started the Friendly Visitor Program about 1 year ago. So it's still emerging and evolving as we go. Anyway, I think it's a fairly new program. We know it's going to grow a lot. And because of that word of mouth, I think the people that are doing the program and really love it, almost every one of our volunteers loves what they do. They really and they're spreading the word. So we're beginning to get more telephone calls from people saying, I want to be a friendly visitor because I heard about the wonderful work that my friend is doing. So I hope that answered the question somewhat.
Great, thank you. Daphne, we have a question asking, are people coming to respite instead of a traditional all-day adult day program, or is it typical
well, like
that
in our area, right? In our area in Montgomery, our city population is about 200,000, and we only have one other day program. I mean, it's like a daycare, and there's only one other. So we really don't have a lot of options other than paid private sitters or a facility. So respite really filled that void. I do know that transportation is a challenge for us, but since we're only 2 employees, I could not take on the liability, the coordination, and all that kind of stuff that goes along with transporting 20 dementia folks. So we don't have that in this program, and I just have to tell the families that up front. I think that they're coming because they really are filled with value and purpose. It's the care partners, we started it for them to get a break, but what we realized was the person living with the disease, they need a break from their care partner. and this is a community place where they can come and they can just hang out with the guys and get a cup of coffee and laugh and joke and all that kind of stuff. So to me, it's not really more the paid sitter kind of service where you're going, you're really coming to find value in community again.
Great, thank you. A question for both of you. Someone has asked if there's a health check required at all for volunteers. there any kind of health screenings that need to be done?
We don't have any.
No.
Here again, it's the social model. We've got the criminal background check and the 3-hour training, and that's all we have.
And Kay, what about you?
No,
with you?
no,
Okay.
we do. No.
Great, thanks. Okay. We have a bunch more questions here. Can you talk a little bit about, Kay, if you know if there's any people you assist that live alone and if there's anything different you might be doing to train the volunteers in that situation?
Yes, absolutely. I would say probably most of the people that we're serving are living alone. We're just beginning to sort of move into actually providing the respite for caregivers as well. So a lot of our training has to do with specifically with that issue. And most of our, I'm trying to think, and most of them have medical care issues. And they need medical advocacy. The volunteers are not really providing that medical advocacy. Our care coordinator is, but we sometimes will have a volunteer take somebody to the doctor's office, maybe just be there with them, maybe take some notes and get back to the care coordinator if the care coordinator can't handle it. So they really are a team member with our care coordinator in providing the services to the person who's living alone especially. That is our biggest challenge. And of course, yeah, with the caregiver, it's a little different. Each one takes on sort of a different flavor. Each person is so different, and that's why we provide the ongoing coaching. Even for all the people who are living alone, they're, of course, like each of us, we each have our own way of being and doing and our own personalities, so it's, and own needs. Each one has very different needs. So it's
Great, thanks for that response. Very helpful. Daphne, how do you handle in respite when a person with dementia may not be interested in an activity that's going on? Is there more than one activity going on at a time, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, I was just trying to answer that in the box, and I couldn't get it to pop up. That's a great question, and you know, at the beginning of this, I thought I wanted everyone to participate, and I was going to, you know, gently nudge them to be part of the thing. And we had a care partner staying with us one day, and he said, Daph, you know, they don't get any choices. They never get any choices. We tell them when to bathe, we tell them when to take medicine, we tell them when to get dressed. And at respite, you should just let them do what they want to do. And that, we just made the turn in year 2. And so they can play cards, they can go on a walk with a volunteer, because we have plenty. They can just hang back, but we do not force anyone to do anything. We want them to have autonomy and control of what they do, and it's really worked out well.
Great, thank you. Kay, can you talk a little bit about any tools you use for keeping track of volunteer hours and how you keep track of which volunteer is going where and all of that information?
Because we're fairly small right now we are basically using Excel spreadsheets and Word documents for basically the care plans and the case studies. And but I'm looking into some software right now, especially as we're thinking about starting the volunteer transportation program that I think can help more with that. I'm hoping that it could also be used just for the visiting piece as well. And I thought of something else, if you don't mind. I'd like to add a little something to the last question. One of the terms that we love, well, supported decision-making, we're really moving into that and working with the legal community, the financial community, everybody to sort of create the opportunities. The persons living alone especially, what we often know that they need is they needed assistance in being autonomous. And there are a lot of things we can do to continue to support them in their decision-making to help them stay in their homes. Anyway, I just forgot to bring
I love that phrase. We say we support them to be independent.
Yes, yeah. Yes, I love that too. Yeah, assisted autonomy is actually, I think, a term we learned from England.
Great, thank you. Daphne, there was a question asking if you do any evaluation of outcomes for respite.
You know, we do not. I was looking at Kay's evaluation. Because there's only 2 of us, and my goal is to spread this all over the country. We've got the programs coming up. One's going to be in Sequim, Washington. One's in Greenville, South Carolina. We've helped one, because of a webinar I did just like this 5 years ago, we helped one launch in New York. Georgia and now Tampa's about to launch. My energy has really gone toward writing a manual, and that'll be ready this summer for anyone that wants to start one of these programs. We've got all the paperwork. I just don't have the assistants to do a lot of the paperwork. And I'm a living example of you don't have to have a lot of paperwork. You know, we have 20 to 25 people coming a day, and that's all I can handle. So, no, we don't have evaluations. I know we need them, but we do have 14 new programs, and it's, you know, it works.
Thanks so much. So I just want to wrap it up at this time. I want to thank both of you for fantastic presentations today. A lot of people have asked for the email addresses for our speakers. So Daphne's email address is up on the screen right now, and I hope that you've had a chance to jot it down. In just a minute, I will switch over so that you can see Kay Wallach's information as well. But I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve for some final remarks while I also switch the slide over so you can see Kay Wallach's information.
Can I just interrupt real quick?
Oh, sure.
We had our first national directors training in February. I had 16 come from around the country that potentially wanted to start, and we'll be doing another one this fall. It's not been scheduled, but if anyone's interested in learning more, we do it Sunday through Tuesday, and you're part of the program for 2 days. And like I said, we will have the manual, and we give all of our paperwork to you so you don't have to recreate it. You can just put your name on it and make it yours. So just wanted to share that.
Great, thank you. Steve, I'll turn it to you for some final remarks.
Great, thank you everyone.